Imagine your brain as a dense forest. Every thought and action is like walking through that forest, carving out a path. The first few times you take a new route, it's difficult. You're pushing through branches, clearing obstacles, creating direction. But the more you walk that same path, the easier it becomes. Eventually, the path is clear, automatic, and effortless. This is how the brain works. When you decide to build a new habit, such as exercising daily, waking up early, or practicing gratitude, you are clearing that neural path. In the beginning, it feels unnatural because the old trails, the habits of procrastination, doubt, or distraction are more familiar. But the brain doesn't care which path you walk most. It only reinforces the one you choose most frequently. Consistency, therefore, is not a matter of luck or personality. It's neuroplasticity in motion. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. It means that no matter your age, background, or past mistakes, your brain can change. Every day, you have the power to rewrite your internal programming. But this process demands awareness and repetition. You can't expect one burst of motivation to undo years of conditioning. The brain learns through consistent exposure. This is why small, daily actions are far more powerful than sporadic bursts of effort. It's not about intensity, it's about frequency. When you act consistently toward your goals, your brain begins to release chemicals that reinforce the new behavior. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter of motivation and reward, is released each time you make progress, even if it's small. This chemical not only makes you feel good, it also strengthens the neural circuit associated with that behavior. Your brain starts to crave the feeling of progress, and that craving becomes fuel for further consistency. This is how success becomes a biological process, not just a psychological one. You are literally training your brain to enjoy discipline. However, inconsistency disrupts this process. When you constantly start and stop, your brain doesn't have time to solidify those new neural patterns. It's like planting a seed and digging it up every few days to check if it's growing. Growth requires stability, and stability requires faith in the unseen. The moments when it feels like nothing is happening are the moments when your brain is working hardest to rewire itself. Consistency is not about immediate results. It's about trusting the process of transformation that's happening beneath the surface. Another crucial aspect of consistency is emotional regulation. The brain is deeply influenced by emotion. When you perform an action while feeling inspired, confident, or grateful, the neural connection you build becomes much stronger. On the other hand, if you repeat an action while feeling resentment or boredom, the brain doesn't record it with the same intensity. This means that consistency is not only about what you do, but also about the energy you bring into what you do. When you combine repetition with elevated emotion, you accelerate the process of rewiring your brain. To create lasting consistency, you must also address the conflict between your conscious and subconscious minds. Your conscious mind sets goals, but your subconscious runs the programs that dictate your behavior. If those programs are rooted in self-doubt or fear, they will override your conscious efforts. That's why so many people fall into the cycle of self-sabotage. They consciously want change, but their subconscious is programmed to seek comfort. The solution is to make your new actions more familiar than your old ones. When you show up repeatedly, even in small ways, your subconscious begins to adapt. It starts to recognize the new behavior as safe, familiar, and normal. Once that happens, your resistance fades and your actions flow with ease. Consistency also changes the way your brain perceives time. When you commit to a long-term vision and show up daily, your brain learns to delay gratification. You stop needing instant rewards because your identity becomes linked to the process rather than the outcome. You start to enjoy the work itself because your brain understands that progress equals pleasure. This shift is the foundation of mastery. The greatest performers, athletes, and thinkers in history all share one thing in common. They train their minds to love repetition. They understand that consistency is not just doing the same thing over and over. It's becoming more aware, more refined, and more connected with each repetition. The science of consistency. teaches us that transformation doesn't happen in a single moment of inspiration. It happens through thousands of small, intentional choices. Each time you show up when you don't feel like it, you're not just building a habit. You're changing your brain. You're sending a message to every cell in your body that you are serious about who you want to become. Over time, your brain begins to mirror that identity. The neurons that fire together, wire together, and the new version of you starts to take shape. Consistency becomes the invisible thread that weaves thought into reality, vision into behavior, and intention into identity. Every transformation begins with one powerful realization that you do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. The life you're experiencing right now is a reflection of your internal state, your thoughts, your emotions, and your beliefs. When people try to change their circumstances without changing who they are internally, they find themselves stuck in a repetitive cycle of frustration. They want success, but they think like someone who doubts. They want confidence, but they feel like someone who's afraid. They want abundance, but they still carry the energy of lack. The elevated mindset begins when you stop trying to fix your outer world and start transforming your inner one. The moment you shift your identity, everything around you begins to reorganize itself to match the new frequency of who you've decided to become. Most people live from their memories. They wake up each day thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, and expecting the same results. Their mind is a record of the past, replaying familiar patterns over and over again. That's why it's so hard to create a new future while living in the emotions of your old story. The brain, by nature, is a prediction machine. It constantly anticipates what will happen next based on what has already happened. So when you try to step into a new version of yourself, your brain immediately compares it to your history. It asks, is this safe? Is this familiar? And when it doesn't recognize the new you, it triggers doubt, fear, or procrastination. Not because you're incapable, but because your mind is designed to protect you from the unknown. The elevated mindset requires you to make the unknown your new home. To create the identity of your future self, you must start thinking from the perspective of that person, not about that person. Most people visualize their goals as if they're watching a movie of someone else's life. But real transformation happens when you step into the scene, when you begin to feel, think, and act as though it's already done. The brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It only responds to experience. When you repeatedly experience your desired future through thought and emotion, your brain begins to rewire itself to support that reality. You literally start to program your body to live in the future instead of reliving the past. An elevated mindset means you stop asking, when will it happen? And start saying, it's already happening. You begin to embody gratitude for outcomes that haven't yet appeared. Gratitude is a powerful emotion because it tells your brain that the event has already occurred. When you feel grateful for something that hasn't happened yet, you're teaching your nervous system to believe in your vision before it manifests. That emotional alignment sends a new signal to your brain and body, guiding your behaviors, decisions, and focus toward that reality. You're no longer chasing your future. You're living it from the inside out. This process requires presence. You can't elevate your mindset while being trapped in the noise of your old self. Every time you react to stress, doubt, or judgment, you're reinforcing your past identity. But when you catch yourself and choose a different response, you weaken the neural connection that supports that old pattern. Over time, the emotional charge attached to your past begins to fade. You become less reactive, more conscious, more in control. The elevated mind doesn't deny challenges. It simply refuses to identify with them. You stop saying, I am stressed, and start saying, I am experiencing stress, but it's not who I am. This separation between emotion and identity gives you freedom. It allows you to operate from a place of awareness rather than survival. Your future self already exists in potential, waiting for you to align with it. Every thought of self-doubt, every fear of failure, every limitation is simply energy holding you in your old frequency. The more you feed those thoughts, the more you strengthen that version of you. But when you start to live as your future self, even in small ways, you begin to shift that energy. The future no longer feels distant because you're embodying it now. You walk differently, speak differently, and make decisions differently because your mind and body are being conditioned to that elevated identity. It's important to understand that your brain follows your attention. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. If you constantly focus on what's missing, your brain will show you more lack. But if you focus on what's becoming, your brain will expand your awareness to new opportunities and synchronicities. Somewhere deep inside every human being, there's a quiet voice that narrates everything we experience. It tells us who we are, what we're capable of, what we deserve, and what we should fear. Most of the time, we don't even notice it. We just live inside it, as if it's the truth. That voice, that internal story, is not who you are. It's the echo of every belief you've inherited, every wound you've carried, every emotion you've memorized. It's the subconscious script that keeps your life repeating the same patterns again and again. Reprogramming the inner story begins with understanding that your thoughts are not facts. They are reflections of your conditioning. You are not the story you've been told. You are the consciousness that can rewrite it. From the moment you were born, your mind began absorbing information like a sponge. The words spoken around you, the emotions you felt from others, the reactions you witnessed, all of these became the foundation of your self-perception. By the age of 7, most of your subconscious programming was already in place. You learned what love looked like, what safety felt like, and what worthiness meant through observation, not choice. If your early environment was filled with fear, criticism, or inconsistency, your brain learned to associate certain emotions with survival. That became your template for how to interact with the world. And unless you consciously change it, that template will quietly dictate the quality of your life. Every time you tell yourself, "I'm not enough," or "I can't do this," or "things never work out for me," you're not describing reality or replaying a program. That program is like a record stuck on repeat. It's familiar, and the human brain loves familiarity even when it's painful. Because to your subconscious mind, familiar equals safe. This is why so many people stay in unhealthy relationships, unfulfilling jobs, or self-destructive habits. They're not choosing pain, they're choosing what feels familiar. Reprogramming the inner story requires you to break that comfort loop. It requires you to interrupt the thoughts that no longer serve your evolution and replace them with new, cowering ones that align with who you want to become. The process starts with awareness. You cannot change what you are unaware of. Begin to notice the tone of your inner dialogue. How do you speak to yourself when you make a mistake? What words do you use when you look in the mirror? How do you describe your future? Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. They beat themselves down mentally, hoping that shame will motivate change. But shame doesn't transform, it paralyzes. Compassion does. When you catch the old story playing, instead of believing it, simply observe it. Say to yourself, "That's an old program running." The moment you do that, you become the observer instead of the participant. And in that moment, the program begins to lose its power. The next step is emotional reconditioning. You can't think your way out of an emotional state. You must feel your way through it. Every time you remember a painful memory, your body relives the same chemical experience it felt when the event first happened. Your heart races, your stomach tightens, your breath shortens. Over time, those emotions become memorized. The body becomes addicted to them, and the addiction keeps you attached to the old story. To reprogram it, you must teach your body how to feel something new. When you practice gratitude, forgiveness, love, or peace intentionally, your brain begins to release new chemicals. The body learns that safety can exist without suffering, that peace can exist without fear. Through repetition, the emotional signature of your life begins to shift. Visualization becomes a powerful tool in this process. When you imagine yourself living from a place of confidence, freedom, and worthiness, your brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. It begins to fire new neural patterns that align with that version of you. The more vividly you feel that reality in your body, the faster your subconscious accepts it as truth. That's why affirmations only work when they're embodied with emotion. Saying, "I am enough," while feeling doubt does nothing. But saying it while breathing deeply, smiling gently, and feeling the energy of possibility in your heart, That's how you install it. You are teaching your body a new story. Another key element in reprogramming the inner story is environment. The people you surround yourself with, the conversations you engage in, and the information you consume are constantly feeding your subconscious. If you spend your time around negativity, criticism, or gossip, you're reinforcing the old narrative of limitation. But when you surround yourself with growth, inspiration, and encouragement, you begin to mirror those energies. The brain learns through imitation. What you observe, you become. So choose environments that reflect the story you're stepping into, not the one you're leaving behind. Meditation is also a vital practice in reprogramming. When you quiet your mind, you create space between your thoughts and your awareness. In that stillness, you can access the subconscious directly. That's where deep change happens. When you focus your attention inward, breathing slowly, and bringing your awareness to the present moment, the brain waves slow down from beta, the analytical state, to alpha and theta, the creative, programmable states. In that state, your subconscious becomes more receptive. You can plant new beliefs and emotions that begin to take root beyond the conscious mind. It's like updating the operating system of your soul. Reprogramming the inner story is not about pretending the past never happened. It's about changing the meaning you give it. You cannot erase memories, but you can transform how your body and mind respond to them. When you look back and say, "That experience made me stronger, wiser, and more compassionate," you rewrite the emotional code associated with that memory. The same energy that once triggered pain now activates empowerment. You reclaim authorship over your narrative. Every time you choose to respond differently than you would have in the past, you're proving to your subconscious that a new reality is possible. Every moment of awareness, every act of forgiveness, every conscious breath is a message sent to your future self saying, "I am no longer living the same story." The old voice may still whisper, but it no longer defines you. The more you repeat this process, the more your inner dialogue aligns with truth. You stop living as the echo of what happened to you and start living as the expression of what you've chosen to become. People believe that healing and growth come from fighting what's wrong, from battling their past, their pain, or their insecurities until they somehow emerge victorious. But resistance only strengthens what you fight. The more energy you give to the idea that something is broken in you, the more real that story becomes in your nervous system. The truth is, you don't heal by fighting. The old you evolve by aligning with the new. Building through alignment means shifting your focus from fixing to creating, from controlling to allowing, from resisting what was to embodying what can be. It's about learning to tune your energy toward the future you desire, rather than the past you fear. When you resist your current state, you send a message to your body that says, "I'm not okay until this changes." That statement alone keeps you locked in a state of lack. Your mind obsesses over what's missing. Your emotions mirror that frustration, and your body begins to live in a loop of tension. You're fighting for progress, but your energy is trapped in the vibration of struggle. Alignment, on the other hand, begins when you accept where you are not as defeat, but as data. Acceptance doesn't mean complacency. It means clarity. It means you stop pouring your energy into resistance and start channeling it into creation. The moment you say, "This is where I am, and that's okay," you free yourself to move forward with peace instead of pressure. Building through alignment is about understanding that your future isn't created by foresights, created by frequency. The energy you emit through your emotions and thoughts determines what experiences you attract. When you're aligned with your vision, your actions feel inspired, your mind feels clear, and your body feels energized. But when you're out of alignment, when you act from fear, frustration, or desperation, everything feels like a struggle. You might take massive action, but it leads to burnout rather than breakthrough. Alignment happens when your thoughts, emotions, and actions are all moving in the same direction. It's when your inner world and outer efforts begin to harmonize. Imagine you're trying to row a boat upstream against the current. That's resistance. You're exhausted, frustrated, and constantly fighting to stay afloat. Now imagine you turn the boat around and let the current carry you while you steer with intention. That's alignment. You're not being passive, you're cooperating with the flow. The current represents life, the universal intelligence that's always guiding you toward expansion. The moment you surrender your need to control every outcome, you begin to notice the opportunities that were always there. You start to attract people, situations, and insights that support your growth naturally. Life begins to work with you instead of against you. To build through alignment, you must start by asking yourself a simple but powerful question. What am I choosing to align with right now? Are you aligning with fear or with faith? With scarcity or with abundance? With your past or with your potential? Every choice you make is an act of alignment. When you wake up in the morning and choose gratitude over